I knew that I was about to plunge off a cliff into a very dark abyss, a very dangerous dark abyss. And so the first thing I realised was I needed a lifeline, something positive that I could cling to.
Hi, I'm Anna Liptak and I've been a fitness trainer now for over 15 years. Over this time, I've been privy to witness so many ordinary people achieve so many wonderful things. Through this podcast and a documentary I co-produced, I'm Not a Runner, I want to share these stories to show everyone that anything is possible if you have the belief and the motivation. In this next podcast, Anne Collins, one of the stars and the poster girl of the I'm Not a Runner documentary, shares with us her battle with mental health and how exercise has enabled her to deal with it. We've got Anne Collins with us this morning. I'm really excited to have you here, Anne, because you are one of the people in the documentary, I'm Not a Runner, and I really thank you firstly for being in I'm Not a Runner. It's really special, and thank you for sharing your story. So thank you for being here this morning. And,
Pleasure.
Extending on that story. Can you firstly just give us a little background about yourself?
I'm 56, been running for a little bit of time now. I'm an Adelaide girl. I love being outdoors. I'm a trail runner at heart.
I want to hear from you, Anne, really, like, when did you start running? I guess this is not only about running, this is about exercise and what it does to people's lives. So firstly, I just want to start with, when did you start exercising in your life?
Look, I think exercise has always been there in the background somewhere. I mean, there has definitely been vast wastelands of nothing. And I can say I've gone from being extremely fit to, all-time prize-winning sofa slug, without a doubt. I'm not an all-or-nothing person, but I think it just depends on where I'm at and where my interest is at the time. So, yeah, but exercise always comes back at some stage and gets me back off the sofa and just reminds me how much I love it and just how good it makes me feel.
So what do you predominantly do as exercise, Anne?
Oh, these days I am definitely multidisciplinary. I have no interest whatsoever, and I know you're not meant to say never, but no interest whatsoever. I find myself hanging out in the dark side these days, hanging out with a bunch of triathletes. But I have always naturally loved swimming, love running, love cycling. I just have no interest whatsoever in grouping it all together in the same day.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
At the moment, yeah, I do a bit of all of that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you, you were in the documentary I'm Not a Runner. How do you feel about it? It's actually going on screen this week, and we're screening it in Adelaide, and 3 sessions have already sold out, and it's being launched in New York in November, which I find a bit overwhelming myself.
I think the whole thing's overwhelming, really.
So how are you feeling about sharing your story up there on the big screen?
Oh, look, I think that for me, the focus is the other stories. You know, I was just enthralled just listening to the other stories. I mean, these are women that I've trained with for, quite a few years, and I know, but your conversation is only at a certain level when you're running up and down the beach together and all that, and then to just really learn so much about them and some of the stories. And even now I think, bring a tissue, I think I almost cracked at one point. And in terms of me, I don't know, it was a very interesting and challenging time in my life. So it's also nice to be at a point where I'm out the other side and I guess give myself the time to look back and reflect as well on that time.
So when you say it's interesting and challenging time, can you tell us about that?
So I went through I can Pollyanna it these days and go a time of massive life change. The trigger for it was the very sudden ending of a relationship. I'm not going to try and go, oh, it was all, sunshine and roses. It wasn't. There was challenges, but I didn't expect to wake up one day and suddenly, and it really was, it was a text message, I can't do this. And then suddenly the person that had been all but living with me for the last 9 months was just gone. And again, you do learn that things like this, it really turned my world upside down And I really felt like I had been flung out into the middle of the ocean and the boat had sailed away and left me, and there was crashing waves, all but trying to drown me. And the thing is, it's never just about the one thing. This brings up so many things in your life, which at the time, in the heat of it, you know, I know that at the very beginning, I was just focusing on this relationship ending, and I wasn't really looking at, because I guess really I'd been hanging on to this relationship as a distraction and a mask to other things in my life that I needed to be dealing with. And then when all the screens and the shields are ripped away and you're just thrown out there raw in the elements with everything that you had held on to as your security in life just gone, just vanished. And it's not, you get different versions of that. Some is with an almighty crash. This just liquided away. Nothing in my life was solid anymore. And I didn't know what to cling to. I guess once you've got a few years under your belt, you realise that, you know, you're not human until you've dropped your bundle a couple of times.
Yes.
And you also know how you've dealt with variations of that in the past. I knew that I was about to plunge off a cliff into a very dark abyss, a very dangerous dark abyss. And so the first thing I realised was I needed a lifeline, something positive that I could cling to. And actually the first thing I did was send a message to you and say I wanted to come out training. And
I want to come and give you a cuddle, but I can't.
No, it's all right. And that's also one of the things that I learned through the process was to, over time, is to not be ashamed of my tears either. They're emotions, and it was a very emotional time for me, and emotions about many things that had been very deeply buried. That even, you know, surprised me in terms of what the heck is that about. But yeah, I just knew I was about to plunge, and I knew it could go one of two ways. It could end really, really badly, or something positive could come of it. And I made a very conscious, active decision not to numb myself with alcohol or substances. I've never been a substance person, but alcohol could have been a really realistic option at that time. Instead, I threw myself into a physical training. I stopped any form of alcohol whatsoever because I knew the danger, because I was just hurting so much, and I didn't know what to do. Of course, I went through the natural stages of grief and everything, complete, absolute, utter denial. And then the rage bit, the rage was interesting. Oh my Lordy, when I look back at the rage, I felt rage like I had never felt before. The banshees had let loose in me. And oh my God, my Tourette's, my poor neighbour, luckily she was quite elderly. Unfortunately, her hearing wasn't impaired, because I would find myself suddenly stop. And I found that I needed to vocalise. I realised I had kept so much so silent within me for so long, and I needed to find my voice. So I would actually, and I'm not kidding you, I would step out. I think the entire neighbourhood for kilometres around were going, what the heck is that? Because I would in fact step into my back garden and yell till I was hoarse any number of expletives directed at this particular person at the time. But the furies had just been
Well, you're obviously
unleashed.
able to get it out.
I was, you know. I remember one day driving down, I'd been to visit a good friend up in Mount Barker, and I was driving down the freeway, and, you know, I was listening to music and and then I was like, what is that noise? What is that noise? And I eventually realised it was a very low guttural wail coming from deep inside of me, and that noise was actually me. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know exercise has been fundamental
Lifesaver.
to
Got me out of bed.
Can you tell me about that, Anne? And
Well,
how that has...
especially in the early days, I wasn't sleeping. You know, when you're in that amount of stress and grief, you know, any kind, adrenaline's running, everything. I wasn't sleeping. You know, I'd barely sleep a couple of hours a day. So I figured I might as well get up really early, get out and embrace life, because there was a life out there. And that also gave me a focus. I just needed a single focus for each day. And so that focus was, no matter where I was, what was going on, I needed to be in my kit and down at the beach, because outdoors, I've always preferred to be outdoors, in my kit, down at the beach, ready to go by 6 a.m. Still didn't seem to change the fact that I always scream in sideways in the car park and sometimes go, wrong car park, because the locations change. But, you know, that was really my focus, and reconnecting, because I had trained with you previously a number of years before and then gone back to the sofa slug thing. And so I knew that it was a safe space to come to, and not only a safe space, but a safe space with familiar faces.
And positive people.
Positive people, loving and welcoming. And, you know, you get out there and the endorphins start going, and then you realise, you know, as you watch a beautiful sunrise, you know, and physically wear yourself out so that the mental and emotional fatigue can, you know, suddenly give you some peace and sleep. And then your focus is, how am I going to get through this day? It's like you will, because you've got to be at training by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And, yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? That, you know, just having that focus.
That anchor when your world around you seems to have disintegrated and nothing seems real anymore.
And having a routine. And I think what you
routine
said
is a lifesaver.
Yeah, and having that safe, supportive community.
Yeah.
And I think if people can find that within their own communities, it's a really important part of my life. In fact, and as you know, I nearly gave up his and her time about a month ago, and I hyperventilated one night, and I was in tears saying, Nick, I can't, this is my baby. I get to meet all these beautiful people 4 or 5 times a week. I'm not going to see them anymore. Like, that to me was ripping my heart away. So the same thing, I just thought, I'm not getting rid of this community. I am so lucky.
And that's it. It's very much a community. You know, I've had some periods, and also just before coming out with, coming out training with you and the lovely people again, of going to a regular gym. And, you know, I enjoyed it, fitted my routine, the little bits that I was doing. But there was never any connection with anyone. And then, you know, to come back out with the group, the pull of seeing those smiling faces each morning far outweighs the dread of the fact that you're going to be very tired and sore by the time you're finished. And it really is about getting up, and it's the people. And then you realise that, in order to hang out with the people, you've got to do all this other stuff. But, somehow or other you get through that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you've got through that time.
Yes, yeah.
And you've achieved a lot of things since then, physically. And one of the things that obviously we see in the movie I'm Not a Runner is your experience.
New York Marathon.
Was that your first marathon?
Moly. That was indeed my first marathon, you know.
So tell us about that, Anne.
My first marathon. Oh, what was I thinking? Hey, look, I've always been one of these people. If people say they run 5Ks every day, I'd be like, what the hell would you want to do that for? You know, I've had times in the past where I've been a 3K slogger, and I say slogger because what I have come to learn is the first 3Ks of any run is shit. It's really, really shit.
True.
So if you're only doing 3Ks, you're only getting the worst bit. Yeah. It's once you get past that it gets better. But a marathon, I was always like, why would you want to do that? And the boyfriend at the time said boyfriend was a runner, and you know, he was talking about wanting to do his first ultra marathon. I had no idea what one of those was, and I realised now I was completely unsupportive in terms of like, why would you want to do that? Which fitted in the whole thing of a marathon. Why would you want to do that? And so with New York, I guess in a way, it wasn't necessarily about the marathon as well. I'm a bit of a coffee slut. I'll do anything for a coffee, you know. People say I can just go buy one, but why would you? But I know coming out with His and Her Time that over the years, His and Her Time have done a lot of amazing trips all over the world with running. And in 2016, I actually did the Sydney Running Festival with you and some of the girls, and I did the bridge run at that time, and
I did it with my son that year.
It was amazing.
Very special.
And so I guess New York, it was like, because, you know, the opportunity for New York came up. I do recall I actually said no to you 3 times initially when it was suggested. And then I guess because I'd always admired the group and the stories that the group would tell about, you know, the runs and the travel and everything. And I guess that slowly pulled me in a bit as the excitement started to ripple around doing all of this.
It's quite contagious, isn't it?
It is really quite contagious. And of course, you know, the offer to do the New York Marathon came up in 2017. And as part of my journey to healing, 2017 for me was a year of yes. I decided at the beginning of the year that it was a year of yes, and if someone said you want to, I just said yes before they'd even finish what they were saying, because
we got you on a good year.
got me. Well, it was a year when it was like, you know, I've got to do things differently. I've got to shut down that inner critic. I need to try to do things differently. The way that I've done things up until now clearly hasn't worked and led me to a place where everything just imploded. So just say yes, you know. And so the things I'd said yes to that year already was the Sydney Bridge Run. Other girls were regulars of the Bali Marathon.
Oh, yes.
So I said yes.
Oh, we did that too, didn't we?
We did. I said yes to the Bali Half Marathon. I'd never run a half marathon. I'd barely run 10 Ks at that stage, but, you know, my running was building. And I'd never been to Bali before, and I travelled separate to the group. And so it was like, yes, just do it. You're going to scare the pants off yourself. And I did. My first night in Bali, I cried all night because I was like, what the hell was I thinking, you know?
Oh, really?
You know, because I jumped in with the year of yes, let's just do this. And yeah, there were still elements in there of distracting and numbing my pain. There was no doubt, because there's only so much you can chew through at one time. And I just remember lying in bed and the pools of tears were just gathering, and then they would spill down over my cheeks. Because I was thinking, what the hell were you thinking? How the hell did you think that coming to Bali on your own, somewhere you've never been, with no one you knew, was the great thing to do to distract yourself from the fact that your world has ripped apart? Yeah. And I can tell you one thing, there's nothing quiet about a night in Bali.
No.
Those cicadas and crickets, and, you know, it's going all night. But so that was part, you know, that was sort of the things that were happening in my year for me. And so New York came up. No. New York came up. Why would I run a marathon? No. And I had gotten into bike riding with the lovely Tracy Evans, my partner in many crimes these days. I always girl crushed on Tracy in group, because she seemed like, you know, one of the cool
girl crush with her.
Cool kids. So, like, you know, there was a point I think earlier on in the year that I got brave and asked Tracy if I could come out and run with her and the girls on Thursday mornings, because there was a little run group which we now call the Thursday Runners. We run on all sorts of moon, you know, but like Kira Lee, Natonya, that you're going to be speaking to later, and Tracy. But anyway, all of that. My stories always have so many segues. The guy I had been dating had become interested in triathlons, and I had an old bike, and he talked me into investing $2,000 in a brand new road bike.
Oh, yes.
He helped me bring it home. He helped me bring it home. I don't think he stayed over that night. I never saw him again after that. Got this $2,000 road bike. What the fuck am I going to do with it? And anyway, Tracy became, she's one of these dark side people, became interested in triathlons. And so I had this road bike. Tracy was wanting to train. So I said, I've got no interest in the triathlon, but I'm more than happy to support you in your training. And so I started riding with Tracy on her bike rides, and you know, do what I could do to support her in her goal to do her first triathlon. And last year when she was training for her Ironman, man, you know, I just couldn't keep up with her. You know, once upon a time I'd have to stop for Tracy to catch up with me. She'd drop me in the first K in training these days.
But it's nice, isn't it? I think that's one of the things about exercise is having support.
Yeah.
So that's I think really a big thing for you know, for so many purposes. Yeah. Like you say, you know, with mental health and friendship and
totally.
And to achieve great things together.
And that bike was really quite instrumental in getting me into running. Basically, because I fell off it and shattered my wrist.
Oh, yes.
And
that's right.
Yeah, and there was a lot I couldn't done, and I'd broken it so badly because I was having a rage moment while I was on my bike and was distracted. Came off. You know, they say the slow accidents are the most damaging. So I went from a stationary stop, realised that I was still clipped in and just went pew.
Yes.
Fortunately for me, the way I held my hand afterwards held everything in place because the orthopaedic surgeon said it was too shattered for him to do anything with. And so, you know, it's one of those things you notice about myself. I can tell the photos of me for the New York Marathon, my hand, to me, was still a bit deformed. My wrist was still
because you are
healing.
Our poster girl.
I know.
Your wrist is up there. And just on that, so, you know, injuries often prevent people from exercising and they stop because they think, oh, my wrist is broken. But there are other things you can do.
Well, what really got me into running was because where I was in terms of my mental health, it was critical that I didn't stop exercising. I had to keep on going, but I also had to, I needed a couple of weeks off while the bones mended because there was some pretty heavy meds involved in that. But it was really important for me that I needed to keep going. And so I'm sure you remembered I came out with my beautiful pink cast out to training, and I really learnt to seriously hate you because we modified my training so I could keep going. And man, three months of squats and lunges.
Legs, there's lots of legs.
That's
in
all
there.
I could do was legs. I couldn't.
But you came out and you did it
because I couldn't do the little runs or anything because that was too jarring for my wrist. So 3 months of squats and lunges, which and
leg ups
and anything, all legs, which
And you actually have pretty good legs now, Anne.
Oh no, my legs are pretty awesome. Well, I don't know, too much information, but I had been lamenting that I'd lost all muscle tone in my arse, and my arse had gone really flat. Because if you're going to break one thing, that my wrist wasn't my first break. I had, I think, sort of mid-2014, I'd broken my leg really badly kite surfing. And it wasn't so much the bone break, but I did significant soft tissue damage to my leg. So in a roundabout way, the broken wrist really helped me rehab my leg enough because I was still working through, I'd lost all head-foot coordination. That's how badly I'd broken it. So I didn't have any sense of where I was putting my feet. And when I really started doing the run training for New York, when you start doing that sort of training, it will also bring up injuries that you haven't fully rehabbed or dealt with. And one of my issues in trying to get back into running or start running was my foot didn't know what to do with itself. It really didn't know how to place, and it didn't know where it was meant to place. And so that actually did result in a number of injuries for me in the training for New York.
Yeah.
A number of Achilles injuries because I still had to very consciously place my foot, and it took a long time, well over a year, and even probably a bit post New York, for my foot to finally find its natural placement in a running step. But 3 months squats, lunges and
so that's
step-ups.
incredible that you didn't use it as an excuse. You still signed up for New York. You completed New York.
I did.
How did you feel when you ran over that finishing line, Anne, with all these obstacles and all these different issues that you dealt with? How did you feel when you got over that finishing line?
I think I was so dark on myself that by that time I think I was just plain shitty. I was just plain shitty with myself.
Why were you shitty with yourself?
I encourage anyone who wants to do a marathon to do it, but, seriously plan for it. But don't kid yourself. These puppies hurt. All the muscles in my feet had collapsed, especially my bad one, my left one. All the muscles in my foot had collapsed. I was in some serious pain, and that does show in some of the photos. Mind you, in saying that, I did my fastest reverse split that last kilometre down the home stretch. I just wanted this to be over.
Into Central Park, yes.
Into Central Park. I did have some stops along the way when I contemplated an Uber, but you couldn't even get a subway. Once you're on course, you are on course. And I do remember coming up Columbus, which there's a lot of continuous incline, which is really the last stretch before you turn into the last bit of Central Park. Yes. And, I was coming up with, the language I was using with myself because I just wasn't happy. And, my hammy was twinging and I just had enough, quite frankly, so it was time for another dummy spit. And I stepped off to the side. I thought, I'll just stretch a bit, and I'm standing there going, and I could see the turn up. I was like, cares. And then I actually looked next to me, and it was actually two doctors in scrubs, and they just looked at me. I've got my name on my shirt. They just went, Conan, you got this. And I went, damn it. Up the hill, and then that last bit, I just wanted it to be over so bad that I was ignoring every bit of screaming pain, and I just ran for that light, and I was like, yes! And it's like, now what do I do? It's a long way back to home.
I know, my mum wanted a wheelchair, I think, after finishing. Like,
I think I could have done with a wheelchaare. And I think there was only a vague pit of me was like, where's my medal? Where's my medal? I finished it. I want that medal. Just get me out of here.
And how do you feel now, looking back? Are you proud of yourself?
Look, if anyone ever comes to use my bathroom, my medal hangs proudly in my bathroom, along with other ones from other events. Mm-hmm. But, it took me, I was so dirty on myself at the end with how much pain I was in, and dirty with myself for quite a while afterwards, that it really did take me a while to look back and go, wow, that was such an achievement in and of itself to get through 42.2 Ks. New York is amazing. Oh my God, it was my first marathon, and it's like if you're ever going to do, I figured if you're going to do your first one and make it big, New York. Yes. But also the training I'd done to get there, which I got to be honest, I was a bit distracted. I was, too busy off kite surfing, having fun kite surfing, not realising I needed to put a few more Ks in on the road. But just also, it's very symbolic of that journey from a really dark place. And I mean dark, I was suicidal. A very dark place back into the light. And the people I'd met on the way and the adventures I'd had, once I'd had this 3 months of swearing at you for all the squats and lunges and gotten that, I realised, actually, I can run. My legs had become so strong. And then I finally, pushed through my anxiety, and I'd been cyber stalking parkrun for a couple of years, and I finally went out and did my first parkrun. I was so anxiety ridden going on my own, because that was the other thing about the Year of Yes, was to, a lot of it, if I was going to do it, I actually had to do it without anyone holding my hand. This was to really force myself to find trust and belief in myself, and not wait for someone else to take the lead and then just follow along with what they wanted to do. It was really to challenge myself to discover what it was that I wanted to do, and to really prove to myself that there was so much that I can do on my own, and I don't need someone to hold my hand to do it. So I stopped cyber stalking parkrun. And then the other thing, which I had been introduced to a little while bit, I very bravely, and again, I can't under or overemphasize how much bravery is involved for many people just to show up somewhere to do things. And one of the things...
Particularly by yourself.
By yourself. And that's one of the things about Parkrun, which it makes it so special. It's a set location, at a set time, at a set distance. You know what you're up for that, and everyone is just so welcoming. So it doesn't matter. No one questions. You're just here to do Parkrun. They don't care if you walk it. They don't care if you run it.
No one cares. This is the thing that people have to realise, is that no one cares, but what it does to you in your life is incredible. And, you know, I really thank you for sharing what you have today, because I think a number of people will be able to relate to it.
Yeah.
So, Anne, what I do want to ask you is, if someone is dealing with mental health issues, what tips would you give them in terms of what exercise can do for them if they're thinking, you know, like I think, you know, you said about the crossroads of alcohol's a very easy one to turn to, other substances is a very easy one to turn to. Exercise is not that easy, but what it does is very powerful. What tips would you give to somebody?
Look, just find some local group. We need to find a sense of belonging. We need routine, and something that is I recommend definitely something that is outside. And just take a leap of faith and show up. Just show up for yourself, and you'll be amazed. You'll just be welcome and embraced like you've always been there, and you're no different to anyone else. And you'll be surprised about the people you'll meet through that will help you through your journey. It's the lovely Natonya from Thursday Runners that pointed me in the direction of amazing psychologists, so I could actually work through some of my issues. These are the people that pick me up when I'm down. These are the people that, when you start building, they notice if you don't show up for training, and they care. And then the conversations you have, because sometimes running can get really tough. You know, it's not easy. I trail run, and you know, some of those hills. And stories just come out from other people, and you learn about their life as well. And it becomes a safe environment where you truly learn that you're not alone, that other people are also going through things, and it's okay. It is
everyone's
okay.
going through things, aren't they? You know, you never know who you're sitting next to and what they're dealing with.
And like this week has been Are You OK? Week in Adelaide, and it's where people are encouraged to ask other people, are you okay? Are you really okay? Being on the other side, I think what's really important when you're in that space, it's important that people ask it, but it's even more vitally important that we learn to say, I'm not okay.
Thank you for being here, Anne.
Yeah.
Thank you. And are you okay?
I am. I'm awesome. I mean, you know, I'd never believe I'd come to such an amazing place. I'm, you know, we all, on one level, we're always who we are, but I've discovered a whole me that I never knew existed. Clearly, she was always there, but...
And how old are you?
I'm 56.
So I'm so pleased you're there.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Anne.
Anna.
Thanks.
Thank you.